What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future. We have everything in abundance, but we die and rot in greed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, folks. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the world. This is Liberia Shiraz. We want to welcome you to the show. Today's topic is corruption and its impact on the rise of Liberia, corruption and its impact on the rise of Liberia. So we invite you to please share the video, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, and tell them Dr. Positive is here. We have a whole panel that will be discussing this topic today. So please share the video. Again, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, and tell them Dr. Positive is here with his colleague to discuss corruption and its impact on the rise of Liberia. So uh, we're gonna do our usual administrative stuff. We're gonna play a song by Quincy B, which is Check and Balance. And then after that song finishes, then we'll get right into the show. But this is an important topic because, folks, somebody might ask, why is corruption important in the rise of Liberia? Folks, if we don't put things in the right place, if we don't have check and balance, if we don't have accountability, eventually Liberia is not going to rise. So, in order for Liberia to rise, corruption have to have some penalty. People have to be penalized for the crime they commit against our people by stealing our money. People have to be penalized for putting our funds in the wrong places. And if money disappears, somebody have to be accountable for that. So please join us. I don't want to go into the whole topic, but please join us as we prepare to discuss this important topic in the rise of Liberia. So let me have the song rolling. Quincy B, Check and Balance, the late Quincy B, Check and Balance. And this song, all right. The song is Check and Balance by Quincy B. So again, listen, folks, and enjoy the song while we get started.
Say, I love, eh. Day and break, everybody on the hustle. Some people know like peace, they want some trouble. Crime rates on the increase, the government can protect the people. Hold up, no justice for the poor. Yeah. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Look the way we're living. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future, yeah. We have everything in abundance, but we die and rot in greed. We pray, asking the Lord for another Moses, cause all we have is pharaohs, yeah. In our suffering is what they're making business of, yeah. The rich get richer and the poor people suffer. Them promise say, them bring development and better education. Our lands are fertile, no food on the land. Our children, we're pushing into begging. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? the hope for the future. Our forefathers were taken into slavery, but in a modern time like this, we're children and slaves. We're fighting a war not with guns and bullets. The enemies I see are my brothers and my sisters. We're diggers of graves while we're still living. Don't judge a book by its covers, looks can be deceiving. Whenever the sun shines, must come a rain. Who will come and take away the pain? Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? Hope for the future. Yeah. We have everything in abundance, but we die and rot in greed. We pray, asking the Lord for another Moses, cause all we have is pharaohs. Yeah. In our suffering, it's what they're making business of. Yeah. The rich get richer, and the poor people suffer. Them promise say, them bring development and better education. Our lands are fertile, no food on the land. Our children, we're pushing into begging. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future. Our forefathers were taken into slavery, but in a modern time like this, we're children and slaves. We're fighting a war not with guns and bullets. The enemies I see are my brothers and my sisters. We're diggers of graves while we're still living. Don't judge a book by its covers, looks can be deceiving. Whenever the sun shines, must come a rain. Who will come and take away the pain? Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Look the way we're living, we're treating one another unfair. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future. Yeah. What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? What's the hope for the future? The hope for the future. Yeah. The hope for the future. Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Welcome to Liberia Shall Rise, folks. Welcome to Liberia Shall Rise. I'm here with my own brother, Mr. Sapolosia. A few people will be joining us shortly, and the topic today is corruption and impact on the rise of Liberia. Corruption and its impact on the rise of Liberia. Mr. Sapolosia, how was your day today? Tell me a little bit. You were talking about a game earlier. How was the game and everything?
Well, so far my day was good. My family's everybody's okay, everything was okay. But the game result was disappointing because I was cheering for England. They lost the penalty. So yeah, so that did not go well. But and other than that,
sorry, man.
Everything is okay.
Yeah. But folks, again, welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. This is Liberia Shall Rise, proposing prosperity for Liberia one day at a time. So we are here to talk about corruption and its impact on the rise of Liberia. Mr. Sapolosia, when you said corruption, I mean, let's first look at it from a common person perspective before we go into the dictionary. Corruption, in your mind, what do you think corruption is? And how does it impact the day-to-day life of our people? Let's just start from there before I look at the standard definition for corruption.
Yeah, and when we look at us as individuals talking about corruption, you know, to us, the common people who will not dive into economics and the legality of it, we just somebody taking, well, we believe is taking more than you're supposed to be taking from government.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and most of the time in Liberia, especially if I put it to the Liberian framework, people believe that only government officials are corrupt. Once you work in government, you are corrupt. So they tend to, or we tend to believe that most of the politicians or Liberian government officials are corrupt. That is, they're not taking money that belong to them. And even if they were giving the money that they earn, we still believe they are corrupt when it comes to Liberian setting. So, but if we're to go scientifically, is not the case, and which will get the scientific or the legal definition from the dictionary as we go on with the program. But in the layman point, once you hear a government official, especially in Liberia, it means corruption. But what we don't take into consideration is anybody, in fact, can be corrupt. Whether you are a marketeer or whatever you are, you can be corrupt, and that is happening in Liberia extensively. Everybody, almost every sector of Liberia is corrupt, whether it's petty business guy or the Yana boy or whoever. Because if you, for example, if you're a common man who bought a bag of rice for $20 and instead of giving the man a full cup of rice, you put candle at the bottom of the cup and give the man half cup of rice, you are being corrupt. That's a form of corruption because you're stealing, right?
Yeah.
So corruption in the definition of in our mind is just stealing. Yeah.
So again, that's a great point to look at it from the holistic point of view, not just from the government point of view. So I think that's a good start, because I do remember when you went to the market, you had to check the cup to make sure that, oh man, we're not giving you rice with candle in the bottom. And then somebody was telling me also the other day that the woman had a way of flipping the cup around when they're giving you the first big one. You think they not give you the first big cup, then they flip it around and they give you the bottom of the rice cup because they're just filling it up. So it seems to be like they are giving you a lot, but they're not really giving you a lot. So again, I think that's a great point. And even from every aspect of life, if we look at corruption that way, in order to target the problem of corruption, we have to look at it that way. We can't just look at it at the highest offices in the country. We have to start from the bottom to the top and the bottom, and the top to the bottom, in the middle, everywhere around there too. So again, thank you for that point. So folks, again, if you are joining us, you can either put your comments in here for us to respond to it, or eventually we'll have a number for you to call in. But please just follow the show. We'd like your participation, because this thing is something that is impacting all of us. Even when you send money to Liberia for somebody to build a house for you, and this person eventually take that money and spend it on their own, that's another form of corruption. So corruption is broad, like my brother said. It's on a broader level. So let's look at it holistically. I think I have one of my other panel guests just arrived, so I'm going to bring him on for him to give his perspective on the definition for corruption from the layman point of view. So let's bring in our next panelist, and then once he finishes, then we'll go forward with the show. Mr. George, welcome to Liberia Shirai, sir. I see you look like you're working today again, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How was your day?
My day was going good. On the England was defeated, so
So all of us are putting England.
Oh yes, I was seriously supporting England. I wanted them to win the trophy that they haven't won one since 1966.
Oh, man, poor guys. We and Sapolosi are on the same page. I'm sorry for it. I'm sorry. I wasn't supporting anybody, so I'm not in your team this afternoon. Yeah.
I went to the store to look for an England jersey. I couldn't find one today. So, but anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, though. But
Thank you.
You think England saw the game
That would be
No,
corruption.
no, no, no.
That
I
would be
think the
corruption.
coach, the coach should not have used very young players to take the last set of penalties. You know, Rashford, Sanko, Saka, they are all 19, 20,
So,
21 years. So it's not for the
so
kind of
you
pressure that comes upon you when you play in front of 60,000, 65,000 fans.
Hmm.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the show. I was going to push you
Thank
on
you.
something, but I would save it for later because I think we can't define corruption when it comes to African country. Because if it was like you are playing that game, you go, I said the coach saw the
uh,
game because the coach, instead of putting Diva on the game, if he put somebody that ain't even qualified, the man saw the game. But because it's England, it was like, no, he took the wrong person, So let's not do that. But anyway, what's your take from the common man perspective on corruption? What corruption is and how is it impacting Liberia, though?
well, corruption, uh, simply put, is the act of receiving and giving. I like to put the second part, giving, in an effort to induce favor.
Mm,
So whenever you find yourself in a situation where you are taking or giving just in order for you to influence the decision of a policy maker or of another person, that's put you in the line of corruption. So the challenge we have in Africa and in Liberia is that, and Liberia is part of Africa, by the way, is that we always forget the second part of culture, and that is the giving aspect. Because many at times, once you give, you are as corrupt as the person that is receiving.
mm,
Once you find yourself in a situation of being the giver, you are also as corrupt. So in an African setting, we all prepare ourselves to give. And, in order for us not to go through the rigors of what we should go through or what we are supposed to go through.
mm,
So corruption is not when we decide to discuss corruption, many a times we start looking at the government, looking at government officials. But in the African setting, I have seen corruption by the individual. In fact, I was listening to a gentleman on one of our popular shows explaining how when he went to Monrovia, he went to the bank, and at the bank, they told him when he went to receive his own money that there were limited US dollars, so he kind of accepted it. But while sitting in the bank, he saw another person putting $20 in an envelope and giving the teller, and the teller was giving that person an actual amount of money. So he got angry and he tried to raise the alarm. He thought others who have joined him in the bank, others who were going through the same challenge to challenge the teller. But when he raised his voice, the other people in the bank who was going through the same process was the one who were against him. In fact, they decided to speak against him, tried to insult him, why he wanted to delay them. If he didn't want his money, he should leave. So in that situation, you know that the corruption is not only from the teller, but it also involves the people who feel it that it's a way of life, that they
yeah.
should also find themselves in such a situation.
Mm. Yeah, so it's being supported by the general public, you can say. So it's not something that the public frown against. You understand? So when I think it takes us back to integrity, or when we're defining morals the other time, right? And we said when folks uh define what is moral for a society, right? What is morally right for a society? That becomes the norm of society. So, Liberians, on the other hand, now, like that bank situation, people are accepting the corrupt acts, like giving bribes and things, to be part of their day-to-day functions, like you just alluded to. So, it's okay for somebody to give bribe to get a service, and that's where the society is. So it's not a small battle to fight, I believe. Based on these concepts, I don't think it's a small battle to fight. But we'll start fighting the battle of corruption if the society itself is not against it. Mr. Sapolosi, you can start there.
Say it again. You said who stops?
No, I said, who starts to fight the battle of corruption if just the situation we just as Mr. George just explained here, if society is for the acts that are going on, like corrupt acts that are going on, like accepting bribe and giving bribe, if society itself is for corruption, then who fights the battle for corruption against corruption?
Well, and let me look at it from a different angle. And I
Mm,
don't want to say it. I don't think society will really appreciate corruption if they had other alternatives. That's how
mm,
I look at it. Now, let us look at the situation of corruption in Liberia. And I'm not an economist, but just looking at what I know from reading the newspaper in the past, let us look at before President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf became president. I think Liberia at the time, the budget was less
mm,
than $1 million. Liberia national budget before when
mm,
Ellen Johnson became president was less than $1 million. By the time she left office, the budget was around 500 and something $1 million, right? Which I mean is not bad. But let us look at the salary structure. I remember back in the days, lawmakers used to make like I think three, four, 500. I mean, Liberian dollars, and then where they used to get more money is when they travel, right? Because when they're traveling, they give them foreign dollar, US dollars to travel. But then fast forward to Madam Sirleaf time, ministers started making 15,000, a minimum of $15,000. Lawmakers also jack up their how do you call it their how do you call this their paycheck or their earning. Now I don't know the sign. I don't know whether they had a science behind that, but in my belief, that was legalizing corruption because you're giving money to people that, in my view, are not working to earn that money, right? And even
mm,
at that, those people are still taking bribes with all the money they're receiving. But then, as those salary structure was being raised for just the top government officials, the same thing was not being done for the guys at the bottom. The classroom teacher pay did not go from I don't know $25 to $2,000. Medical doctor did not go from whatever 500 to 10,000 or 15,000 or five. I mean, at least 10,000 United States dollars. It did not. They all left at the bottom. So these people have almost no choice because they're looking at the guy at the top who's receiving the $15,000. And when you go to that, like for example, like foreign ministry, we all went to a foreign ministry if you were to travel, or if you're going to the health ministry to get a birth certificate, or if you were going to any government institution to get some document. You as a common man will have to bribe those that are in there, right? So who to start the fight, in my view, are those that are at the top, like the government official who have the regulatory power. They will have to start, right? Now, the reason I say I will address it from a different angle is because if those people in society, like the common man who Brother George was just talking about, were fighting against the guy who was trying for things to go right, they were doing it because that's the only thing they have seen, right? They feel that if they don't give that $10 or whatever, they won't get the money as fast as they want it. So they are supporting it not because they really love it, but because they don't understand the negative impact it has on them. In my view, they don't understand the negative impact it has on them. But let's say they have options where these people have government official or somebody being punished for corruption. Trust me, they will fight again. They will join that guy to fight. But the thing is being embraced even in the church, places that they go to school, right? The guy goes to school, he's seeing bribery being done. He's giving money for grace. Because these are all education. We shouldn't forget this. It didn't come from a vacuum. The guy goes to school, he sees people bribing to get grade. The guy goes to church, he sees people bribing even pastors to get prayer, right? To get healing, or all these things. So it's a societal thing. Now, the common man will look at it and say, you know what? If I don't play this game, I'm not going to survive, right? And that will go triggering down all to the marketeers. Nobody is getting punished for it. If somebody was being punished, and I can tell you that if in Liberia, for example, a leader come in Liberia today and say anybody is corrupt, I will put you in jail, and they see that man punishing even his own relative. Trust me, I know Liberians. They will quickly turn around and stop doing that. Let's go back to the wartime. During people say Prince Johnson Rebel were one of the best, even though they were killing innocent people, right? The reason people were saying that because on the physical, on the outside, they saw Prince Johnson killing his people because according to them, they were stopping people from looting. right? He was killing his soldiers. So
Yeah.
they thought because of that, he was one of the rebels who were good, right? And that's what will happen. So those that live in pre-Johnson territory, according to them, I was not there, but those that lived there, they said they were more structured, they had more discipline as compared to those that were living in Chancellor's territory. I live in Chancellor territory, I know what I saw, right?
Mhm.
So this is what it comes to. When Liberians see somebody taking action against those at the top, the men at the bottom will stop. So I believe those to start this fight are those at the top. Our lawmakers, our government, the executive, and the judiciary.
All right. Sounds good. I think those are great points too. But uh, going back to morality, I think individuals themselves have to have some morals because, like, let's go to something that happened in Haiti recently. The president of Haiti got killed, right? They said the people just walk in the house. I don't know the details, but they just walk in the house and they assassinated the president. Now, look at Liberia, for example. When you get to the airport, the fact that it's okay for people to accept money from you, it's okay for people to take bribe from you, when you get to the executive mansion, what or the foreign affairs or these buildings, what protection is there to say if I wanted to see somebody, I can pay bribe to see somebody, right? You are saying something though. You say at the bottom because those people are not paid well, because they are not paid adequately, they take bribery and take accepting of bribery as the norm. But I'm saying is we have to have morals, right? We have to have moral value and also value the position we are in. Because if I'm in a security position to protect the president and I'm allowed to accept bribe and I'm able to accept bribe, right? That's a security threat itself right there, right? Because no matter it doesn't matter how much that person have to give me, you understand? I will accept some bribe and I will be putting the president life in danger. I'll be putting the government official life or even the citizens' life in danger. So what I'm saying is even though these problems exist, even though these things exist, when we as a society accept corruption as the norm, it endanger us. I found an article that I was reading before this thing. The FBI see corruption as a threat to national security. The FBI of the United States, they see corruption as a threat to national security. So Liberia itself have to start looking at that in order for Liberia to rise. So, Mr. George, I'll let you chime in before we go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, your points you made were very relevant to what we are discussing. I will pick it back to Emmanuel about laying the blame on the officials. Yes, we can lay the blame on the officials, but often at times it is the people who suffer the pain of corruption. And I believe that if the people that put officials in power, if the people decide that we have to put an end to this, we will definitely be able to put an end to it. If we go into history, there is not a single country in the world who have not gone through who have not suffered corruption. Even in this United States, corruption was part of life for a very long time. But at a particular time, the people decided that, look, we have to stop this if we have to progress. We cannot allow the few to continue to enjoy the wealth of the nation while the majority suffer. So it is the right of the people. It's our duty as a people when we see things that are wrong to stop that. For example, again, there's another story about what is going on at the airport in Monrovia with this coronavirus issue, where people who have to return back to the U.S. are being charged huge sum of money so before they can get on plane, or else they are told that they have been tested and they have been tested positive for the virus. Now, what is happening at the end of the day is that we find ourselves on Honduras and we pay those sum of money. So just imagine if everyone at the airport decide, look, we are not going to pay money for a test that we have that is positive, or you charging me extra money, or if everyone decides to go to the hospital about a week or 2 weeks ahead of time. That way, we stop that. Or if we take pictures of those who are collecting money and put it in the newspaper or other things, it will stop that. So we as a people, I think we as a people, we have we have a lot to do in this fight against corruption. It's not always government official. I remember when I was working at the University of Liberia as a visiting assistant professor. There was one thing that I noticed and was actually painful because many of our senators and members of the House of Representatives have hundreds of students that are on scholarship in the University of Liberia and other universities in Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an election in this election year, and one of the senators who had about 56% on his scholarship lost his election. Do you know what effectively happened? Those 60 students found it difficult to register because by losing the election, he could no longer sponsor them in the university. So imagine 60 people, their entire life may have been cut short, or they had to go through depression because they depended on a person salary or income to pay. So my discussion at that time at the University of Liberia was, why don't you form an endowment fund that all the senators put them in this endowment fund, and the students who are capable, or the students who go through rigorous process for scholarship, have the scholarship. They don't have to be going to the Capitol building all the time to have the name on Senator Peter Paul list or Senator Joseph John list. And if Senator Joseph John lost election, they find it difficult to go to school because they are not on a list. But if that money is into a University of Liberia endowment fund, and students are giving that scholarship, no one, whether the person is center or not, that money will be there for them to continue to pay their fees, to continue the studies in the university. So we as a people, we need to fight it both sides. And another side I will come on is that I'm showing the first one of what happened in the bank. The second one is that we Africans, we encourage people to be corrupt. Because, for example, and say if you listen to any recording of the justification of why our members of the legislature, senators or members of the House of Representatives have increased their salary or this money that they were talking about 1 week ago, the justification is that there are hundreds of people who come to the House to beg them for school fees, to beg them for the wedding ceremony, funeral, death income. Hundreds are coming to the House to do that. So the pressure makes them to become quote unquote corrupt because they have to add extra money to their salary to take care of this kind of mounting pressure of people coming. In my opinion, I call it the legitimizing voting in our country. Because if you have to put 5,000 in your budget because you feel that Emmanuel George come to your house every Sunday morning and you have to give him money when he comes to you, that means you are legitimizing poverty. But that money again could be reinvested in the economy so that Emmanuel George will have a job. If you give Emmanuel George a job, pay him well, that means according to the Liberian statistics, 6 other persons or 7 other persons will come to will be benefiting, and perhaps that reduction will take place. So again, as a society, as a people, once I hear that Steve Kelly is a government minister, I know Steve Kelly from school. Every day I visit his office. The little salary that Steve Kelly is receiving as a government minister, I'm visiting his salary so that I can be to be a part of that income. Then we also, as a people, expect Steve Kelly in 1 year to build a big house. Because if Steve Kelly leave the office, excuse me, and he doesn't have a very big house, we say, Steve Kelly is a very stupid man. How can he be an assistant minister? At the end of the day, he owns property. Remember the interview that the former Vice President Joseph Burger gave a few weeks ago when he said that I currently live on loan. There are many Liberians who are laughing at him. How can you serve as the Vice President for 12 years and after 12 years you are living alone? You are living on support from other people, or there's an expectation of something. So our society does not expect that people who are in higher position, they are not supposed to live normal life as normal people. They are supposed to have all the income. They are supposed to enjoy the fruit from being up there. and that encourages corruption in our society. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. George. And
Steve, if I can just come in before you go on.
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I was not blaming the government. I said they can start. Because I think that's the question Steve asked. So I'm saying the government can start the process. I was not blaming. Everybody is responsible when it comes to corruption in Liberia. Everybody is responsible because I think I alluded to the guy in the market giving the half cup of rice to somebody instead of a whole cup of rice, right? So yeah, what I'm saying is, but who can start the ball rolling? In my view, is the government. And as time goes by, I can give us what the government can do, and he just touched on one of those things. But yeah, Steve, I just want to clear that part. If you can go ahead.
All right. Yeah, thank you again, folks. Those of you joining, I'm going to put a number out here for you to start calling if you want to call in to participate. If you want to come on video, just let me know, and I will send you a video link for you to come on to be part of the panel. But again, corruption, its impact on the rise of Liberia. Folks, when we talk about corruption, first of all, like I said, I wanted to look at the definition for corruption. I know we've been talking from just a common person perspective, how we understand corruption to be and what impact it's causing us as a people. So looking at the actual dictionary definition for corruption, it said any dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery. Then the World Bank itself came up and said, hey, I have to come up with my own definition for corruption. And the World Bank, according to the World Bank, they said it is a form of dishonesty. I kind of underline that because it's a form of dishonesty. So there are types of dishonesty if you look at it, but they say it's a form of dishonesty or a criminal offense which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is entrusted with the position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefit or abuse power for one's private gain, right? So they said the World Bank look at it, I think they define it on a holistic level. So whoever is giving power, for example, on Liberia's Rise here, we're supposed to collect money to pay for the funding of Liberia's Rise. And I go and tell you guys, hey, it's $500 for the payment for the platform, whereas the first thing is now $500 and maybe $250. Then just because I'm the one that in control of this, I go and say, all right, it's $500. Then you guys send me that $500. I go and take my own share and then pay the $250 for the running of the platform. And I refuse to give you guys access to any of the documents that show that I'm paying for this platform. You understand? So those are the simple things that's how corruption starts, right? Those little things that we do to ourselves when we are granted authority, when we have the power to do something, to make decisions, or to control funds. Sometimes we start taking things into our own hands just to benefit ourselves a little bit. So that's where the World Bank is saying, and that's what the dictionary is saying. So, Mr. Topolosia, based on that, where it says somebody in power or in authority, and I think Mr. George alluded to something earlier. He said corruption takes place in two forms. One is given and one is taken, right? Yes. And I too want to add another thing. Corruption could take place because of ignorance of the receiver also, right? And that's the third aspect I would like to add to that, the ignorance of the receiver. So, for example, look at the mineral wealth of Liberia, right? We have people that come from different parts of the world to dig our gold, to dig our diamonds, and they control the price of our diamonds, our gold, and they are willing, right? They are willing to pay maybe $1 million to get their project started, and they don't care about that $1 million because they know that people that are controlling those resources are ignorant of the fact that those resources could lead to a lot of wealth. So that's the reason I want to add ignorance, not just from the giver or the taker, but also the receiver of whatever aspect it is that is leading to that corruption. So I will let you go. Let me get your take on that. Then I will let Mr. George go ahead.
Steve, that put me in the background for 5 minutes. I'll be back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what both of you say when it comes to that aspect of corruption is true, and that's the fact about what's happening in Liberia. You know, now I would want us ready. We're looking at the impact of what I would want us to really focus more on what we can do
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of corruption in Liberia, because I think everybody knows, right, what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
We all understand what the problem is, but what can we do for
Sure.
Liberia to rise in the absent or in the minimal corrupt environment?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What are those mechanisms? And when you ask your question regarding who can start, I said the government,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they got the power to.
And I said no, right? I said no, not the government alone, the people themselves, because if we're waiting 100%, like I said, if we're waiting 100% for the government to bring that whip, right? For the government to bring that whip, corruption will never get eradicated, right? But I think people themselves have to have that moral value and say, if I'm doing this, but then besides having that moral value, we have to hold those in leadership accountable. So it go back to the leadership people, right? So if we as a people stand up and say, hey, we are going to stop corruption in our country. When I go to the bank, when I'm going there to get my money gram, I'm going to get my money gram. I'm not going to pay that $50 that person asking for. Or, okay, for example, I sent $110 for my brother, right? And the bank teller decided that the $10 supposed to have been for her, and the $100 was supposed to be for my brother, because she saw the extra $10 over it, right? And I said, no, you shouldn't have given it to her. But he was the one that went and gave her the money. He said he didn't want to waste his time. And I was like, listen, I'm sending you somewhere to go and give somebody money. I don't want you to take your own money and pay your way. So I'm putting that $10 on it for you. The fact that you decided to give it to the bank teller, that means you don't need it, and that's not right. You should have told me so as well give it to somebody else. Maybe you could have just given it to the person that you are taking the money to. You understand? So if we ourselves are supporting corruption, then that means it's going to stay in the society forever. So go ahead. I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, you know, why it is true. I want us to face the reality. What we're all saying, that everybody's involved in corruption, is true. And everybody, whether we want to support it or not, whether they're supporting it intentionally or unintentionally, is something that we have to look at. What I consider reality.
Mm-hmm.
What the reality on the ground, right? Let's put it in the context of a guy who has been asking Emmanuel Sapolusia for $25 for the past 3 months. And
Yeah.
he's not coming. And his children are at the house, hungry. They have not had food to eat for the past, I don't know, weeks. And every time he goes home, the kids got long faces. The children don't want to listen to him. His wife is about to leave him. And Emmanuel sent him $50. And somebody tells him, look, if you don't give me $5, I'm not going to give you your money. What's the chance of me telling that woman, no, I'm not giving you $5. I'm going to go home and tell my wife I stand my ground. And I explained that to my wife or my kids. And they tell me, oh, yeah, Dad, you were right for not accepting that money. What's the chance of that happening? It's not going to happen. That's just the reality. That's the reality. And that's where most of us, few, and I can tell you very few people in Liberia can say, look, I stand my ground only because they got something at home.
Mm-hmm.
But 98% of those people that receive from abroad or from other people, they can't stand our ground. And that's just the reality. You can't tell somebody, look, I want to have this done. And the person, and most of the time in our society where Liberia is, and I've been there, I've seen it, where who you go to, you go to the bank manager will send you back to that guy. In fact, the bank manager is not giving that teller the opportunity to stand up for the right thing. Because I've seen it where somebody stood their ground and somebody go above them. And it happens. So then where do we go?
So the teller themselves stood their ground, but then the manager said, no, do it.
Yeah, because the person's come to you and say, look, I'll give you $5. The person said, no, go stay in line. Then they say, okay, well, you know what? Why wasting my time with you for? I'm going to let me go call the manager.
Mm-hmm.
Simple thing. Let's bring it back to even the police. I've seen it where I was still at 2017 and I almost got involved. My brothers and say, oh, no, don't get involved. We get into trouble. So right on Bessie Street. And this is all part of this. These are all corruption also. On Bessie Street, this is the only guy was driving and he hit a pedestrian. So he hit this pedestrian and the police guy came and got involved. When the police guy got there, this guy slapped the police guy.
The
And I got
Lebanese guy,
angry.
the Lebanese guy slapped the police guy.
Yeah, the nigga slapped the police guy. So I got angry. I said, why you slap the man? You know? And he wanted to react. So, but he slapped him and telling him, look, if you say another word, I'm calling. In fact, then he go on the phone and start calling 102. Yeah. So he calling 102 to report that he has slapped a Liberian National Police officer. And the police guy is standing and crying because he has nobody backing him. So look, we can sit. I'm not saying we can have the morality to fight corruption. I'm not saying that. But in order for anybody to fight corruption, the reason you and I can sit here today and say, "Oh, I'm not paying that bill. I'm not doing this," is because we got systems in place that will back us when we go to say we're standing our ground. In Liberia, our people don't have anything to back them up, and that's just the reality.
But I would beg to differ with you, though. You know, what you're saying is you seem to be kind of supporting them, even though you're talking.
No,
let me finish.
Okay.
Even though you're talking about let's do what we can to solve the problem, right?
Yes.
Everything you stated, I know the police officer case was one, but the fact that you were from a different place, right? And you said you didn't go and talk to that Lebanese guy. If you are even going and intervene for that police officer, you could have been a one change maker. You understand?
Yes.
I'll give you my situation in Liberia too. Similar issue. I went to the health ministry. My mother was supposed to be leaving Liberia, and these guys refused to give me her birth certificate. I was supposed to take it to the embassy, right? They refused to give it to me, and I refused to pay. I have paid the $50 that they require for expedition, right? And like I said, I never got that document till the day or the week before I was coming back to America. Fortunately, they gave my mother the visa, but if they would deny my mother the visa if that document was really required, right? But I think it was just part of the process for them to have all the documents. So once I finally got it, I mailed it to them. You understand? But I refused to pay the bribe, and I was like, I don't care. If they let my mother case get denied because of this, I'm going to hold the Liberian government as accountable for that. But we have to start taking those small steps. I understand what you say when the guy go to the bank and they refuse to give him that money because of the $5 he refused to give. I believe if he stood his ground, like he's saying, and the rest of the people in the bank that are going to collect their money, right, stand their ground with this guy and support this guy, eventually it will stop. But when everybody in that bank, like Mr. George was saying, when everybody in that bank say it's okay for this guy to pay the bribe, if he doesn't want to pay the bribe, he should stand to the back of the line, then that's bad. And then even at the managerial level, for a manager to say, hey, tell her if you don't take that person $5, then you are wrong, I'm going to fire you, that's also wrong. You understand? So everybody have to start playing their own part.
Yes.
Corruption should stop, because all these little things that they're doing. I'll tell you the example. Look at the $50 that is collected at the airport. That they say if you don't pay that $50 to get your vaccine, if you don't pay $75 to get your vaccine, you can't enter the country. Now, Ghana changed their process where everybody used to pay at the airport, because people were still pulling people from the side, right? People are pulling people on the side to get that money. In Ghana, the Ghana that all of us are local highly, people are pulling people on the side to say, hey, don't go to the office. I will take that money from you on the side. So Ghana said, no, let's cut that process off. Right now, if you're traveling to Ghana, you have to go through an information system. You have to go through some website. Pay that $50, get a receipt, and that's a receipt you'll take to Ghana. So you're not going to interact with anybody with John Paul on the side or anything. So in order to cut corruption out, we have to take out all these middlemen sometimes.
Okay, so you just proved my point that it is the government that has to do it, because you just said it. People were doing it. It's not nobody that fought the people at the airport. No, it was the Ghana government who mitigated that problem. That's what I'm saying. They got to start. People were complaining. People are complaining in Liberia right now. People have complained. People are demonstrating even in Liberia. But is it changing anything? As I speak to you, just recently, because I'm following the airport situation, because just recently they were even at the Senate answering questions on how the money is being used, who is collecting the money, who's responsible, right? And the health minister said they're trying to tackle that. But I'm telling you, when it comes to fighting these things, I'm not saying everybody should not be involved. Everybody must be involved. But the reality is, if you don't have a backup system that will back you up when you go to stand your ground. You are a one man fighting a battle, so it's difficult to succeed. Okay, so like I said, we all know that corruption is in Liberia. You and I know all the different corruption that is in Liberia. But what can we do? How can we start looking at what are the mechanisms that can be put in place for maybe the future government officials are going to come up in the future, right? Because those are people we should start speaking to, not those that are there, because they're not going to change. They are who they are. But these audiences that listen to us, some of them might be there tomorrow. These are the people we need to start talking to, what they can put in place. For example, let's look at what happened during the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government when she brought all this bunch of money the lawmakers started putting into being, which Dr. George talked about earlier, right? Let's be realistic. You don't need to have a county development fund going to a lawmaker. You said a county development fund. Why are you giving it to a lawmaker? Why are you giving it to the superintendent? That superintendent will not be there forever. That lawmaker will not be there forever. If you said it is a county development fund, let it be put into the county development account. Let it be regulated by the county without the lawmaker interference, without the superintendent interference. Because first of all, the superintendent is a government, is an appointed position. So let it be those people that are within the county, and those people should have a committee or a structure that is responsible day in, day out, year in, year out, to regulate who get that scholarship, who benefit from those scholarships from their counties. But think about it. You got a guy who is in Montserrat, who is from Grand Jide. He's a Grand Jide senator. He lives in Monrovia. He has scholarships, but those that are benefiting from the scholarship were born in Monrovia. They were not born in Grand Jide. They might have been born onto a Grand Jide citizen, but they have not visited Grand Jide. But then you want the country to decentralize. If you're taking the money that belongs to the guy who lives in Zwedru or Tucson or whatever in Grand Jide, who have graduated from high school to benefit from that scholarship, you're not giving it to him, but giving it to the who know me in Monrovia, then how is that benefiting Grand Jide citizens? So it should be measured in that accordance.
Yeah, let me just read. I get the point you're saying, and those are things that, like you said, people don't value what they are representing, right? People don't really value what they're representing, because like you say, if I'm a representative for Grand Jide County, I want to make sure my people, my county get developed, right? So that county development fund should be used to build the schools in Grand Jide, should be used to build the roads in Grand Jide, that it should be used to create jobs in Grand Jide, right? Whether it involves sending children to school in Grand Jide, and the school, that money should be circulating in Grand Jide. So they should have a stipulation that says whatever fund is allocated for county development fund should stay within that county, right?
Yes.
So that must be spent on resources in that county, So I see we got Dr. George back on. Let me hear his point of view on the aspect of doing something to fix corruption in Liberia, because like you said, everybody know corruption exists. So what can we do? What system can we put in place to at least try to start controlling corruption, whether it's a citizen police or whether it's individual doing their own thing, or whether it's the government? Where do we start from? I'm going to go back to that. Where do we start from, Mr. Judge?
The very first thing that we all have to realize and consider that there is no way we can stop corruption. No human society have been able to stop corruption.
No, I said
we can minimize. Yeah, we can minimize the level of corruption that we have in our society, and we don't need to reinvent the wheels. Like, take for example, when we had a situation in the U.S. with the financial crisis, the lawmakers saw that given the credit cards were an issue, they tried to limit the number of money that banks could give and regulate the banking sector. So what we have to do, I believe, as a people, is to first of all start regulating the different sectors in our country, regulating how much money should be spent by a particular government official, asking for our leaders to give their bank statements or their financial statement, or before they start elected office, and after every electoral season, we make sure we audit them to see whether the amount of money they said they had is the same amount or whether that amount have increased in what they have in the bank. We hold the bank responsible to report to maybe the financial team that we had, a financial fraud office in Liberia, report if there is an increase in income in a particular account, whether it is a Liberian official account or non-official account. You see, here in the U.S., when you start to have a money, when there is an increase between $4, $5, sometimes $10, $20,000 in your account, the FBI start monitoring your account. They start monitoring your activities. You don't know, but your account and your activities is monitored. And before long, you may receive a visit or you receive a letter asking you to explain why you are getting, or sometimes there's a freeze on your account. Recently too, I listened to MTR, even U.S. citizens that live abroad, their accounts are monitored as to their income in order for them to return their taxes to the U.S. government. So the bank will normally deny them certain banking benefits if they not report their income or how much they have in banks. In Europe, are mandated to report to the U.S. government money that is going into the banking account in the accounts of American citizens that live outside of this country. So we may need to monitor that. I also know when I live in Nigeria, Nigeria may not be a better example when we discuss the corruption, but I remember when I lived in Nigeria, your account at a certain amount was also monitored and was also investigated. So we may need to consider investigating accounts that have monies that cannot be explained and allow those unexplained monies to go into government coffers. And we also need to create opportunities for our people. We live in a country that have a very high youthful population. Every year we graduate between 3,000 to 4,000 people from universities. And majority of those who graduate from the university, maybe only 10% of those students. So if you graduate 5,000, maybe only 5, you 2,000 people in the economy every year that are unemployed, and those people need to survive. And for them to survive, they may find themselves because they become a burden to their family members also, and then those family members will have to find themselves being corrupt to take care of themselves and take care of their extended families. So we need to start creating jobs. Now, one thing I don't hear us talking about a lot in Liberia. Every time we talk about government, we do not analyze how much jobs did this government create. How many people were? We don't discuss that in Liberia at all in our political climate. But yet and still, we have a very strong youthful population, and we have a lot of people who are unemployed living in our country. So in order for us to curtail corruption, we may have to find jobs for people. And then let us pay people the salary they deserve for the type of job they do. I have no problem with a senator making $15,000 a month. But is he doing a job? Is his job equivalent to $15,000 a month? Is he creating jobs in Liberia with the $15,000 that we give him every month? How much income is he bringing into the country? You know, so that should be our factor, things that we should be able to determine, things that we should be able to understand. And then we need to go into the church too. Most churches are corrupt. They are receiving monies for their members, and they can't know what to do with that money. Some of them have tax-free incentives. So we should also visit the churches, visit the schools, and we ourselves as individuals, as a people, we need to start revisiting ourselves, re-examining ourselves, because we also and contribute to the level of corruption we have in our country today.
Yeah, again, thank you. Somebody, Mr. Awida says something here with you. He said, I disagree with some of Mr. Emmanuel's points. I would recommend addressing the nation poverty issue first and then ensure all workers are being paid accordingly on time. Now we can include the rest. So I think you alluded to it at the end of your statement. So where you talk about the lawmakers being paid for what they are worth and not what somebody think they are worth, right? I know, but because maybe they should be paid with commission. Say, okay, your salary is $5,000, but based on the amount of job you create in your district, based on the amount of job you create in your constituency, you get certain percentage of that money that you create of the taxes that come from your constituency. So anyway, I'll
Yes,
let
that's
Mr.
a positive. Yeah, many of us who live in who have worked in different areas. I have not worked with government before, so I can explain how it looks like in government. But the various areas that I have worked, your salary is determined by your input.
Yeah.
It's determined by how much you bring into the company. So if if you are making $20,000 a month, it depends on that's $100,000, $200,000, or even $1 million a month to the company, and the company say, well, this person is very productive, so we have to pay him this amount of money. So as a person, starts making with it. The only problem I have is the justification of that $15,000 a month. Yeah, justification of the $15,000 a month. Their contribution to the Liberian economy every month, does it justify the $15,000 we pay them? If it does not justify the $15,000 we pay them, then it means that we as a country need to reconsider how we pay them and the justification for the salary we pay them. And that will also determine people who work. I mean, during Madam Salif's administration, most government ministers were making $7,500 a month. And it was based on one, what the government could afford, and two, Western government contribution. But it was also based on their input. So if you are receiving $7,500 per month, every month we should call you to attention and find out how much work have you done that is making us to pay you this $7,500 every month.
All right, Mr. Sapolosia, you chime in on that, and then
when it comes to what Dr. George just talked about, when it comes to the salary increase, it started with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. In fact, I know of ministers who was a minister of a ministry getting up to $15,000 to $20,000, and also that same minister is a consultant at that ministry getting about another $20,000. So it was under her administration that we got this increase, because when she presented when she took her 500 people from America and took them to Liberia and was trying to increase, it says she was creating middle class, whatever that is. That was when we had a breakdown in this increase in salary, because the lawmakers themselves felt that if she's giving it this amount of money, they themselves should have X, Y, Z of an amount. All right. But let us look at what we can do in Liberia. You know, I believe most of the spending in Liberia cannot or is not matching with what is coming in, right? Especially our ministries, our government entities. You know, I remember when President Weah took over, he said he was going to be you're going to reduce his salary that we don't know how much it is. And but what was surprising was, before he got there, the State for Presidential Affairs, their annual budget was $18 million. When he got there, he increased it to $21 million. So how is that decreasing whatever coming into your coffer, right? He increased, almost everything was increased, right? The speaker money went up, I think, to $2 million and so forth. Why all that? What all the money going to these people? Let's look at somebody. Like, I have already visited the budget most of the time. Every year I do it, but only the last 2 years I have not wasted my time because it keeps repeating itself. When you go and look at the breakdown of the budget every year, you go to even if you go to the finance ministry website right now, they will give you the previous year budget, how what they generated and stuff like that. If you look in there, some of the money that we're giving these people are not needed. Take for example transportation. If you look at the lawmakers, because they don't bring here, that's the funny thing I see. When it comes to the ministries, they don't break them down how much the minister is making and all how much he's getting, what goes to his different or how do you call this thing, benefit or allowances, right? But the lawmakers, they got a breakdown of each of those, how it's spent. They gave these people about $100,000 for transportation a year for transportation. They got another $100,000 for lubricant. I mean, everything that has to do with maintenance of a vehicle. It's three different money going for the same vehicle.
For the same
then you
car.
got domestic travel. Then from domestic travel you got rural travel. Then beside road, they got another travel for traveling out of the country. I mean, you got all kinds of jumbo just within one budget of one sitting representative. And I'm sitting there like, okay, let's say the vehicles. Let's say we provide transportation for these people. The guy is working. You pay him already, right? I believe the way we can cut off some of this spending, right, is every minister, deputy minister that government gave vehicle to, that vehicle should be for government only and government use only. You get paid by your private vehicle. How you spend it, that's your problem. Every driver, in my view, should be trained by the government. You train these people, then they'll be civil servant, be on civil servant salary.
Yeah,
When they come, they pick up their busman or whoever, Monday to Friday. You take him home, let him take his private vehicle, whatever you want to do, that's his problem. GSA is there. I know normal day they used to have a GSA garage on somewhere there on Lynn Street, right? And they had one in public where y'all carry government vehicle there on Friday evening for maintenance. Sunday evening, driver come and pick it up, go pick up his bus Monday to Friday. The man guy he's getting paid. Then that how government can save money on that transportation, maintenance, and all that stuff. Most of the people own their own houses, but we pay them housing allowance, we pay that electricity bill, we pay everything, right? Cell phone, you pay for cell phone. I mean, the money I'm telling you is not small money.
Small money.
Every money that you talk about, scratch card will be about 50,000. Stationery, 20,000. Why not you just buy stationery like in more company? I work for a hospital where they send out our budget. Everybody buy their supply, and we spread out different departments.
Yeah.
Right? So why can't GSA manage all those things? But that's the money that we're giving to these people, and we don't see what they're doing. You got stationery, and then you got pen and pencil. What is the difference between stationery and pen? I mean, all kinds of things. You got printer different. So these are all money that can be used to benefit the country, and not just the lawmaker aspect of it. We don't know what happened in the ministries. We don't know what happened in all the area. But I'm telling us, just on transportation and communication, if we can take out some of the money and reinvest it somewhere else, it'll be better.
All right. So as we already at 9 minutes over time, so let's try and wrap this up a little bit. So if we were to categorize the government of Liberia or the art of corruption in Liberia and say, let's break it down. At what level do we need to start? I will give Mr. George some time to talk about what he can do to solve corruption problem, and then I will conclude with my advice on what we can do to solve corruption problem, because I think it's a serious problem, and if the people that we're supposed to hold accountable are causing the corruption, then who hold the people who hold them accountable? I know, Mr. Sabolosia, you said we should hold the government accountable. Mr. George said we should hold the people accountable. And I'm saying we have to hold both of them accountable. So where do we start from to solve the problem of corruption in Liberia, in Africa? How does this start? Because we are losing millions of dollars. Like the thing you just said about all the spending the government do based on even their own going to work, your car. So let's say they're paying for the car, they're paying for the tire, they're paying for the gas you put in it, they give them gas voucher. They do everything, but then they also have drivers. Then they select their own drivers. Some of them might select their own driver and start paying their own drivers too. You understand? So all these things are costing the country a lot of money. So how can we start? Mr. George, I will let you go. And then I think we just have Prince that joined us. I'm going to give you guys I will try to go till 6:30 because I have some things to take care of. So let's push to 6:30 at least, if we can go to that route. Mr. George, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'll just go on my brother's skin a little bit. And all that he did in his last statement, we cannot attribute it to corruption. It's the law. The budget
Yeah.
is the law. I mean, if the law make us put the money in the law, the president sign it into law, is the law. That's the thing about democracy. The democracy is the most expensive government to run, and it's. I think we as Liberians we may reach a point where we need to stand and say which part of democracy we really need. Because Russia did the same thing when it became expensive to them. They decided, look, how can we refine democracy to meet our own needs? So yes, it may be painful when we see these things, but once the budget is passed into law, it's not corruption again. We have legitimized whatsoever people want to do. But in answering what we can do, as I said before, as a people, as a country, we need to start by checkmating things that are. First of all, we have to be patriotic. I'm sure it's a topic we're going to discuss in the future. We have to first of all love Liberia and love Liberians. Recently, one of my former students, he now works in Ghana with one of the leading consulting firms. He had a client who wanted to invest in Liberia. So he called me that he was traveling to Liberia with his clients. They had an appointment. And I said, that's fine. He told me what the guy wanted to do. And if things work up, he will see whether I can help this guy. So, well, they went to Liberia. This guy is a Ghanaian multi-millionaire. He had his own money. He came to Liberia, wanted to invest because he saw an opportunity. So they went to this particular area. I won't mention it because I don't want to be political yet. Went to this particular place, saw this particular person that they went to see, and the person directed them to another person in the office to go and talk to. At the end of the day, to cut the long story short, the second person to talk to was asking them to give them $300,000 so that the process could go on and they could start an investment. So they drove to the airport and the guy was telling my former student that I have not started my business. And yet there's somebody who is not part of this business is requesting that I started business. I gave you $300,000. So he flew to Ghana and moved. That company did not come to Liberia. I think they moved to Guinea or another African country. So that investor who have come, he will invest in Liberia, and at least 100 Liberians who have gotten a job. And that money who have gone around. But we lost that opportunity because one person sat down in his office and determined that he should be paid before he allows someone to have the paperwork to do it. So we need to counter these things. We need to make it very easy for investors to come in our country and invest. Once they are investing in our country, our people will have jobs, a minimum poverty, and it will reduce the burden of the government and the burden of the people on government officials. The second point I think we can all consider as a people is making sure that, again, as I said before, let us know how much that our government officials or people in power, people in authority, be able to reveal their salaries and let these salaries and let us see what income is equal to their lifestyle. We have seen several investigations in the West where a person's lifestyle did not match the income and that person was booked for corruption and placed in prison.
Mr. George, can I ask you, before you land in your talk, I just wanted to know though, in the United States, a government official's salary, that's public information, I believe. I don't know if that's the same for Liberia. You can go ahead.
Yeah. We didn't know our legislature salary until Honorable Darrell's video went into the Senate. That when they decided to review what a salary was. If you talk to 10 different legislatures before, you get 10 different salary that they received. So we didn't know that. So it was not public information. But you remember the situation in this country of a government official who used his official plane to take his wife on vacation. When he came back, he had to resign and he had to pay.
Pay for the
He had to pay for that flight for his wife, because it was not an authorized flight. He had to pay for it. And do you also know? I just learned it recently that even Air Force One, every journalist that ride on Air Force One, they have to pay to the U.S. government for their work to ride on. Even though they ride with the president, he's flying around, they have to pay. So it is something that we have to also inculcate in our country. Not to say the laws are not there, because I'm sure we have a lot of laws in Liberia, but it's for us to follow. And then our audit reports. When the audit report is out, when they come out, we have other reports that for years we have not concluded the investigation on those audit reports. We as a country, we need to be fast in investigating the report. Those who are supposed to go to justice need to go to justice. And that will be able to help our people understand that something is going on. And finally, we the people, we need to stop putting a lot of pressure on our government officials. We need to start going to their home 6 o'clock in the morning to beg, to be at the door trying to ask them to pay our children's school fees. We need to learn this thing as a people. It may be, I hope I'm not saying if it's a hard truth, I apologize, but it's something we need to think about. If you do not have the ability to bring a child in this world, it is not that of us have children. But you cannot have your child and you expect another person to be responsible for taking care of the child you brought into this world. And we many of us, if you cannot afford to have a $10,000 marriage, you can
start
have
a business.
$200 or $10 marriage. You don't have to have flamboyant marriage and invite everybody to eat and eating gossip about you. But you and your wife can go to the court. There are 3 legal ways to get married in Liberia: the court, the church, and tradition. So if you cannot afford to have the flamboyant church wedding, just stay in your income. That's all we should try to learn to stay within our income. Because you try to impress people who don't, cut your coat according to your measurement. That's what we say in Liberia. So we the people, we have our part. And we need to start bribing people wherever we find ourselves, so that at least we can curtail this whole issue of corruption. And when we do that, I'm sure our country is going to rise. We're going to restore. We're going to become strong. Because it has happened. I've seen it happen in Ghana. When I went to Ghana in 1992 as a refugee, that country was corrupt. Everything you had to pay for. But I could remember after years, with Jerry Rawlings and others they did not stop it, but they minimized it. There was time that when you travel through West Africa, when you get to the Ghanaian border, you feel relief. Because an official at the border asks you for money, you tell him, "Me patrol, sika." He understands that language. They are not going to force you to pay. But in next Togo, they even want to put you in prison to bribe them. But the Ghanaians caught it on very soon. And they were able they are able to develop to where they find themselves developing right now. And not only that.
I said, great point. I would let Mr. Sapolosia come into so we can finish here. But thank you for those points. I think those are excellent points. You're saying that people in leadership, people at leadership authority should control the level of corruption. I think those are great points. Mr. Sapolosia,
yes.
Piggyback or add to what Mr. George said. Let's see whether we can bring this to a close. We have
yes. So corruption, like no one can end corruption. However, like we said throughout, everybody is responsible. But unfortunately for us, those in authority normally have the power to do it if they want to. Legalizing stuff doesn't make it right. Yes, it is illegal. Because if you look at the laws that these people pass every year, including their budgets, in my view, is corrupt. Because there is no way you will be paying yourself $15,000, and in the same building you're working in, somebody is being paid $25 a month. So I believe there's something we should look at as Liberians, and maybe it will help with corruption. That every law, before we can put it into being, it should have a moral push of moral stance or moral impact. All right, because it won't make sense to you that a guy is being paid $15,000 a month, and then in the same institution, another person there, his whole salary is less than $300. His whole year salary is less than $300. I mean, so every law we should start looking at that. That we should add morality to our laws that we pass. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Because is it morally right? Does it sound morally convincing that I'm being paid $15,000 and somebody being paid $100?
No, just to add to your point, though, when the U.S. When they're passing laws in the state, right? Even though the Senate or the Congress might debate some of those local laws, right? But they don't just pass it themselves. Before it passes, bring it to the voters, right? And we decide that law become law.
Exactly.
Right? Because the voters have an input. For example, I think there was something they were talking about, even cancer research, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to give one of the hospitals, I think, about $5 or $10 million for cancer research, and that was put in the during the voting. They put it on the ballot for people to actually vote. They call it Proposition 8, Proposition 8 5, or something like that, and they put it on the ballot for the citizens after debating with the citizens. After debating, they get put on the ballot, and the citizens have to say yes or no to that proposition. If the citizens say yes to that proposition, it gets passed. If they say no to that proposition, it doesn't get passed. But the power that we have given our lawmakers. They have autonomous powers that they can do anything. That's what is messing our country up. Continue. Sorry for
but in life, think of, even in Houston, I know in Texas, you and I in Texas, Proposition 13, where they're talking about transgender and all that stuff should be to have the right to participate. If they have male, they should participate in female stuff. That one was knocked down in Texas, right? So but this is another thing, picking on what you just talked about. In Liberia, the citizens don't even have the right to petition their lawmakers, even though they elected them. They cannot petition them. They cannot impeach them, right? They can't. So what kind of government we're running? So look, where it boils down to is why it is true. It might be legal, but it is not right. So we should have moral ethics to be added, in my view, to every law we make, especially when it comes to things that will affect the nation as a whole. When you sign a concession agreement, because it becomes a law.
Yeah.
It tends to now be burdened by that law you just passed by signing that concession agreement. So we should have the morality added to it. If I'm signing a concession agreement in Bon County, in Wela, and they said, okay, there's a mountain in Wela. Now the question is, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of Wela Mountain being mine to the citizen of Wela? Look at Firestone being in Liberia from 1926. We cannot speak of any major high school beside the one that talk about you might give me any Dusa or whatever that is. One hospital. The whole of Firestone covers a huge range of places. Right? No running water in other places. But guess what? When you come here to Firestone stores, go to that shop. You will have when you go to change your tire, Firestone rubber from Liberia, you get coffee if you want. But those that are tapping the rubber in Firestone, they don't have access to safe drinking water. Why? Because they bribe our government officials and take the incentives from the citizen.
Yeah. So no, I said all boils down to our next topic, patriotism, right?
I really want us to finish. As we speak on corruption tonight, look, what we need to do as citizens, every one of us, whether you're in government or non-government, whether you're in Liberia or not in Liberia, we need to stand for what is right. Everything we do should be for what is right for our country, right? Because the only way we can move forward, as other countries have done, especially Ghana. I look at Ghana because I was in Ghana 2006. I went to Tema. Today I saw Tema. I saw the streets of Tema, like in Houston, Texas. Anybody who's been to Houston, you see the bridges crossing over one another. I saw a sky view of Tema. I said, that's not the same place I drove to me 2006. That's less than 15 years. And the country have developed that vastly. But look at Liberia. People will talk about it. We went through war. Other countries have gone through war. Rwanda had one of the most devastating genocide in a short time. But see how far they have come and what resources are they depending on. Not what we have, but it's all because of corruption. Corruption is the main problem of Liberia. The main problem. I know people tend to say illiteracy. No, it's not. Illiteracy is not. One, selfishness. Two, corruption. And it's because of selfishness that are giving breeding ground to corruption. That's our main problem in Liberia. So as we close to that, look, I want to say thanks to everyone who shared on this platform. And in order for Liberia to rise, we all have to come together and fight corruption, not by lips, but by our actions.
Yeah, and thank you so much, brother. So to wrap up here, folks, I just want to say something. You might be that one person in Liberia that stand up at the bank when somebody tell you pay $5, take your phone, put it on Facebook, and say, "Hey, I'm at the bank. I'm not going to pay this $5 today. Let's see whether that bank will continue paying, forcing you guys to pay that $5 to get your own money." The bank teller is getting paid for God's sake, right? And even if they are not paid to the level that they need to be paid, it is not my responsibility that coming there to collect that $5 that my sister or brother sent for me to pay their salary. So if I come there and say no, and it forced me to pay that money, I get on camera. And if all the other Liberians around there are saying it's okay for that person, then let's shame the whole Liberia and say everybody in Liberia are corrupt, right? But by keeping that a secret, we are impacting our country, we are impacting our fellow citizen life, and this is causing the harm to Liberia today. In order for Liberia to rise, like you hear everybody said here today, we as Liberians have to step up. And if it causes us to step up again and go on the strike against our lawmakers' salary, we have to do something about it, because they cannot be making all that money and our teachers are not being paid, our police men are not being paid, our police officers are not being paid, people that public servants are not being paid, and they think their salary is they have reasons to tell why they need that huge salary. So let us all put on our shoes and fight corruption for the reason or the harm that is causing to our country, not just because it's going to benefit me today or it's going to benefit you today, but because it's going to benefit the generations that are yet to be born. Our country, for God's sake, needs to be developed. Our country needs to be developed. Our people need to live a better life. So as we end this show, our next topic will be on patriotism. What does it mean to be a Liberian? What does it mean to love your country? What does it mean to really value that country of yours? And if somebody really value that country, Liberia, corruption will be talked about less, because they will do everything they can, whether it's in a concession agreement signing, they will do everything they can that will benefit our country. So I want to thank my panelists today. I want to thank all of you, Mr. George, Mr. Sapolosia. I want to thank you guys so much for the time. You guys have a blessed week. Hopefully we'll meet next week to get on our next topic. And I want to thank you for your time and say hi to the family for me. Have a blessed day, guys.
You too. Do the same for me. Thank you.
Mr. George on mute. But anyway, thank you guys. Take care, folks. Out there in Facebook land. You guys, thank you. Thank you, folks. You guys have a great week. Enjoy your week, and bless you in all you do. Okay, take care.